This is Jace LeJeune, LSU beat writer for Gridiron Football, and you're watching the FanView podcast.
Welcome everybody to the FanView podcast here on the New Orleans Talk Network. I'm one of the hosts, Coach Hurricane Hen, and I have a good friend of an older good friend with us today, LSU beat writer and Gridiron football sports reporter, Jace LeJeune.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, man, no doubt, no doubt. Been trying to get somebody in y'all wheelhouse on us with us for a while, to expand our horizon, reach into that Baton Rouge market, and just we love what y'all do and kind of support and shed spotlights on football and our athletes throughout the states, which is something that we pride ourselves on. And before we get started, we want to remind everybody, like, comment, share on all social media platforms. You can find us at New Orleans Talk Network. You can find us at the FanView podcast on all social medias, and you can also follow the Gridiron Football. What's y'all social medias?
Yeah, so if you follow us on Twitter, it's at Gridiron Football with one L because there's only so many letters they let you have by Twitter, right? But it's pretty simple on Facebook, Gridiron Football USA, and it's the same thing on Instagram as well. Gridiron Football USA is where you can find us.
And there it is, folks. And here we go. We about to start it off hot, baby. So one thing that we love to do on the podcast is we love to ask our guests to share with the fans out there the journey. How does Jace go from former athlete to working at Louisiana Magazine to becoming a beat writer for Gridiron Football?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, Coach. It really started off. I've been around the game a whole lot. My dad, Ron LeJeune, he was a head football coach in the Baton Rouge area for a long time. I was at a couple of different stops, and I can remember my first really early football memories when I was about 10, 11 years old. My dad was head coach at Terra High School in Baton Rouge, and it's pretty funny nowadays because Marcus Randall was on that staff. He gave Marcus his first coaching opportunity over there.
Okay.
So really a lot of the Woodlawn staff now. I was pretty much the Terra staff then. So I grew up around the sport, but I actually graduated from Catholic high school in Baton Rouge and put my foot in the door in the media side of things a little bit, and that allowed me an opportunity to go work at an internship with Lieber Keene and Louisiana Football Magazine. I was there for about 4 or 5 years, and I really appreciate Lee really giving me that first opening, through the door and learning the business and everything. And was over there for 5 years, learned a whole lot from Lee. And this opened up a year ago an opportunity to work with Andy Bryson and Gridiron Football, and expand my horizons a little bit, cover LSU football, and at the same time cover really my love, which is high school football in Louisiana as well. So I really appreciate Andy and really Marcus as well for giving me the opportunity to come over. And this is my second year with Gridiron Football, covering LSU and covering high school football. And I love every day of this working this opportunity. So
Yeah, one day we love to, especially for the kids that watch, we love to give them like insights on, like, hey, if sports doesn't work out for you, there's other avenues you can use sports to use, to change lanes and to get you into or closer to the game than possibly your athletics could have got you. And
mhm.
so one of the things I want to ask, because a lot of us, we hear about it, we hear the term beat writer, we hear this and that, but a lot of people don't even know what it entails unless you like on the ESPN, platform where they always got a camera in your face. But 98% of the industry beat writers, you don't see their face at all. It's
Right.
just behind the scenes and stuff. Like, even sometimes, like, most of the insiders are the beat writers and stuff. So what goes into beat writing? Like, how do you stay successful, stay relevant in that competitive market with all the outlets out there that could kind of hinder you?
Yeah, you have to really pay attention to really the growing, ever changing media, because nowadays it's now Twitter or X, whatever you call it now, and it's
Yeah.
social media, Facebook. So with players too, and keeping up with players and what they're doing, you really have to follow what they're doing on social media, because that's really their channel now.
Hmm.
So in order to keep up with everything going on, you really have to keep up in pace with what really the players are doing and what they're posting on social media. So that is just really the nowadays and ever what players are doing now is getting their words out there for social media. So keeping up with that and just always always following it along with everything's going on is how you stay on top of it. So if you're always on social media, you're always keeping your mind out there and trying to figure out what everything's going on. That's how you stay on top of everything.
Now, and also what comes with the business is asking those uncomfortable questions at in your business, which is like prime time. But as a coach, I can tell you like it's like, man, I don't want to talk about it right now, but it comes with the territory. But for the beat writers, like especially like you're always on campus, they're always seeing you, ins and out. I remember when Andy was still beat writing. Every time I would see him at LSU, he was like, "Man, come on, come talk to Coach Nader with me." I'm like, "Man, I'm tired of talking to Coach Nader, man." But he's like, it's like that relationship you have. But then it's like after a tough loss or incident that happened off the field, you have to ask a question because that's part of your job. So how do you navigate the personal relationships that you build as time goes on with the different coaches? You meet the families and whatnot, and also the kids, but also have to do your job and kind of keep that line gray but not blurry and
Mhm.
still be a human at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, really, if you follow a team all the time, you're around the coach all the time, around the players all the time, you understand what they're trying to do. At the end of the day, I mean, that's their job, and they know that you're just doing your job. So that at the end of the day, even if it's a tough question, I mean, it's what the public wants to know. At the end of the day, you have to go with what the public wants to know and make sure you get the facts, and that's all you're trying to do at the end of the day. So, I know we understand what the coaches' jobs are, and that they're leading their football team, and they gotta make sure that they're on top of everything. But at the end of the day, from the media side of things, we just gotta make sure we're on top of the facts and make sure the general public really knows what's going on. So, it's just you have to obviously respect what they're doing, but at
Hmm.
the same time, it's just respecting each other. And if we get to that situation when we have to ask the tough questions, at the end of the day, it's just our job, and that's what we have to do.
I'm trying to think of the best way to word this next question that I want to ask you. But a lot of people in your side of the business, they want to report the story whether it hurts the person or not. Now, like I said, Andy's a good friend of mine.
Mhm.
I support everything that he does, and with supporting that, I read pretty much then read all the articles that that you did written for him since joining the team. And I've been on campus a couple of times while you was on campus, and I've seen some things. I've seen you seen some things,
Yeah.
and when it comes to when that publication gets printed, it's not in there.
Hmm.
And you could easily pull a rabbit out the hat and
Hmm.
be like, "Hey, this is what Jace about to make his name,"
Hmm.
and you don't. Is that part of growing up around football with your dad being a coach, respecting the brotherhood, and also understand, hey, I was young before. I understand, understand where these kids come from. It's not always I could make a lot of money off of making
Hmm.
reporting this, but it would damage the kid. And I
Right.
care about my area and the kid more than I care about being the first one to say A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, I mean, and I relate to a lot of these kids. I mean, I've grown around the sport of football a long time. I've been around my dad, like I said, I've been around a lot of different places, bounced around a whole lot. So I know what it takes to, sometimes kids, are just not there yet, and they have to grow up. They have to learn their lesson. It just happens, right?
Mhm.
Each kid really has their own personal journey,
Right.
so you can't really compare it to another kid as they go through their personal journey. So really, it's up to the kid to really grow from their mistakes, and I understand that. So I don't. I'm not really for just bashing a kid and just beating him while he's down. I'm just not really for that. Really, for us and for Gridiron football, what we try to do is just make sure we promote the positives, promote the good things that are going on.
Hmm.
Because in this world, we really need a lot more positive things going on. So focusing on the good stuff, the positives that are happening. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some times where something does happen, we have to report it, but really, we try to focus on the positives, the good things that are happening, because that's what really needs promoting, and that's something too where other kids that are trying to find their personal journey, they can relate to somebody that's really going through that. So, especially on the positive thing, so something they can look up to a positive role model, and that will actually and results of that will have less of these negative things that are going on. So that's what we try to do at Gridiron Football is make sure we try to promote the positives that are going on.
Understand that. Understand that. Let's hop into the meat and potatoes of it, baby.
Oh yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
now, for those of y'all who follow this, y'all know I'm a diehard LSU guy, through and through. I've been there since Jerry DiNardo
Well, okay.
and Herb Tyler, Cecil
Hmm.
Collins. I've been through the ups, downs, peaks, valleys, you name it. I've been there. Now my other two cohorts, they're Michigan guys. Everybody don't make good decisions in their life, but being how you started beat writing for LSU when Brian Kelly got the job.
Yep, that was my first year. First year came on the job was when his first year he
Yeah.
came on the job.
So
So
so going through year one, seeing how he had to attack the transfer portal, he had to hire new staff, he had to, just change. He had to put his identity on LSU football, and seeing where it's at now. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen?
just really the organization of it. I mean, you can tell really my first year going through it last year. You can see like the quarterback position's not figured out yet, right? The offensive line that's not figured out yet. A lot of the secondary is not figured out yet. So there's a lot of scrambling trying to figure out what fits what, who plays where. It was a lot of scrambling around to see what player fits what position. There are a lot of unanswered questions in year one. Going to year two, you can just tell from year one, year two, the difference. I mean, just the operation and really we appreciate Coach Kelly for giving us a lot of access. I mean, he's allowing us to go to practice every single day, at least watch an hour, hour and a half of practice, which is really talking to a lot more experienced LSU beat writers. They haven't had this much access, when Les was there and when Ed was there. So we appreciate Coach Kelly first for that access for us. But just seeing the organization of it,
Mhm.
coming in, everybody's just a lot more calm. Everybody knows where, like all the positions last year that everybody was worrying about, they're much more solidified this year. Like you come in for this year, you know who the quarterback is,
Right.
you know what the starting five offensive linemen really are. So really, a lot of those position battles, they pretty much figured themselves out, and it has to do with a lot of freshmen last year that really stepped up in big positions. I mean, last year it was nothing but freshmen stepping up for this football team.
Correct.
Mason Taylor at tight end, you had Harold Perkins at linebacker, the two tackles,
Yeah.
which is really rare to see in the SEC,
And be successful.
and be successful at it. So having a lot of those pieces coming from a lot of young guys and seeing how, especially at the quarterback position, Jaden Daniels, how he improved throughout the year and how he ended the season off to a great start. I mean, great end. Those are some things why this year coming up, it just feels just a lot more natural and just a lot more smooth of an operation.
Okay. Let's go position by position. Let's start with the staff. I would say since I've been coaching football and had access to the grounds, like whenever I wanted, so to speak. This is the first staff where I've seen like it's ran like a business. I don't, when Les was there, Les was like he's an offensive guy. You know, he played lineman. He was in his way, so it's like seeing him going from the O line, boom, 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 and then he'll step away from that, going to the fullbacks, boom, going to the running backs, and then he'll go to like the cam and like, hey, I want to see boom, boom, boom.
Hmm.
It was like micromanaging with talent.
Right.
Then Ed comes along, and Ed's just a fiery, just he's just all energy. Love Ed, love Ed, love Ed. Personal relationship and all. He's a real good dude. But it's like, uh, you know, wherever Ed is, whether it's head coach, position, off the ball analyst, he's gonna have his hand in D line. That's his bread and butter. That's what he's gonna do. And so you never got to see Meatball Coach Johnson, really
Right.
just shine, and he's doing a hell of a job at Baylor. You and then now you see Kelly come in, and everybody knows Kelly's an offensive guy.
Hmm.
Kelly could easily call his plays like he's done at numerous stops, but I'm sitting there and just watching him watch Denbrock work. I'm
Hmm.
sitting there also watching Denbrock letting Cortez Hankton design the
Hmm.
pass plays and talk and like this is what we want to boom boom. I see Frank, hey, this is what we want to do. Run green. I see Brad Davis just shining, and you flip over to the defensive side. You see Matt House bring this NFL approach. Where look, this is what we want to do. This is what I see. Let's make it execute, and it's like not missing a beat.
Hmm.
You know, so what do you think? And they lost some people.
Right.
We lost. We had the intern D line coach. Then the new coach. He had a I can't think of his
Yeah,
name.
Coach Lindsey, he had a
Yeah,
health
Coach Lindsey.
scare.
He
Yep.
had a health scare. Was took Coach Janik, who was paramount for Harold Perkins and BJ Ojolari, kind of extend
Hmm.
last year, and now he's the D line
Right.
coach. And you still got Steeps, you still got Coach Cooks,
Sure.
who been staple after losing Coach Bush and Corey Raymond, whose legacy that LSU. To see year two them growing together, the brotherhood and all that stuff, and it's just like you said earlier, like just moving in a gelled kind of direction.
Yeah, it really is. And like you said, a CEO type, that is Brian Kelly. Because you see him, like you said, you would see Ed Orgeron working with the D lineman, you would see Les with the offensive lineman. But Kelly, every time we see him in practice, he's right in the middle. He's just overseeing everything. He realizes that he's a CEO. He's the one that made these hires. So if you're confident in the hires that you made, you're going to let them do their job. And that's what Brian Kelly's really done.
Mm.
He's let all these coaches really work, and Brad Davis he's the guy coaching the offensive lineup. Cortez Hankton, he's with the receivers. So there's no doubt about it. I'm Frank Wilson with the running backs. There's no doubt about who is leading that position group in practice. So Brian Kelly just lets his guys coach, and I think that's what makes him another reason why he's been so successful everywhere he's been. Besides him trying to get that elusive national championship, obviously.
Right.
But really, he's done an excellent job of letting his coaches coach, and you really saw that last year as really the coaching on the field has also been an improvement last year, and a big reason why they were able to have the season, the surprise season everybody didn't really expect for them to have.
I expected it. I expected it. I expected it. I called it. You know. Now, don't. Now, for y'all who about to the comment I'm about to make, don't pay no mind to the laugh you're gonna hear from our producers because
Okay.
they don't understand what's football like they supposed to. But let's talk about the sexy position on the field, baby. The trenches.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
trenches.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
talk about this O line that's coming back, man.
Oh yeah, I mean there is a lot to love about it, Coach,
Mm.
and those positions that you really love, and really if you watch these guys in practice, sometimes it just just watch. I'm gonna watch the big uglies go at it, and I tell you, they are very impressive. I mean, there was that year with Orgeron back in I think it was like the off season in 2020 was during the COVID year, just before like Jamar Chase, left in like 2019 too. Like Jamar Chase, when everybody would see Jamar Chase and Derek Stingley go at each other,
Hmm.
well, you pretty much have that offensive line, defensive line equivalent when we see Will Campbell and Mason Smith go against each other every day in practice. But the offensive line, compared to a year ago, we're trying to figure out who the center was. Garrett Dellinger was taking snaps, and he never really played center before.
Right.
So this year, Charles Turner, I feel like his name doesn't get mentioned a whole lot, but he was a big piece why LSU was able to have the season they did last year because he was the only true natural center they really had, and he did an excellent job. I feel like the offensive line was at their best last year when he was playing center, when Dellinger was playing guard. And then you can't undersell what everybody talked about last year, but what the tackles did last year, and Emory Jones and Will Campbell for coming here in their freshman year in the SEC and block against guys like Will Anderson and guys like that every single week, and
Hmm.
for able to like really hold their own against those guys was very impressive. I don't think you probably ever see that anything like that ever again. What they were able to do. So you get your five guys like solid, like steady for this year coming up. And then Marlon Martinez, he's in the second string as far as like at center. He's been getting a lot of snaps and everything. And he's a guy that coaches really like, and for him to be that swing guy
Yeah.
whenever they need it. But really the second group, I feel like there was an improvement in the second group than it was last year. So it was like the offensive line has added some more depth this year. A guy that's been impressing pretty much all of us has been Zalance Hurd,
Yeah.
who was Will Campbell's teammate, and he's coming. You can't not miss him. I mean, the guy
He's a
just
mountain.
he is
He's
a
a
mountain
mountain.
of a man.
Mhm.
And so he even told Coach Kelly when they were recruiting him, was like, "I'm gonna be your starting left tackle." And Brian Kelly said, "Well, we got a pretty good one." And Will Campbell as their starting left tackle was like, "Yeah, I was teammates with Will. Trust me, I'm gonna be your starting left tackle." So that just shows you the confidence he also has coming in, and he's been dominant in practice too. He's got the better of Deshaun Womack a lot of times, who's a five-star himself
Yeah.
and is going to be a stud. A couple of times he pancaked him. So Bo Bordelon has looked really well. He's been playing some tackle too. So I feel like the second string unit has also been much improved than it was last year, because you already know the starting five in the offensive line is pretty much as good as it gets in the SEC coming into this year.
Yeah. I told Brad Davis, at the last LSU coaching clinic, I said, man, I never doubted you as a coach, but the job that you did with Charles Turner, because a lot of people forget that he came in to the program as a tackle, and to most times in high school, if you're playing tackle, you're either gonna play guard or tackle in on the next level. That's it. But to go from tackle all the way to center, that's a huge coaching task, and to get him ready. Then also, like, I knew Will was gonna be Will.
Right.
You know, just the growing pains and all of that. But Emory Jones, like, I've watched him in high school when he was at Cali High. I was like, he got some great feet.
Oh
He
yeah.
got some he was feet was phenomenal. He's a finesse guy, but at the point of attack is where he struggles. And
Hmm.
I was like, when I seen him get put in the starting line, man, how are we gonna do that? And he was like, man, I just had to unlock the mean streak in him.
Hmm.
He had it in it, and then he talked about his upbringing and stuff, like what a lot of people don't know, and I won't disclose. And then he was like, man, I just use that as fuel. And then the next day he goes out there at practice after we have that conversation, and he stonewalls BJ Ojolari.
Yeah.
And this is a kid that's going in the first round. He just stonewalls, and I was like, that's it, done deal. There's our tackle.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it really a lot last year in practice. Like he would get the better of like a veteran like Jacoby and Guillory, and everybody's eyes were wide open. It's like, okay, like they're going to try to figure out to implement him somewhere, and because he was just so good in practice. And so when they started him against Mississippi State, that was just like the true signs. Like, okay, he's ready and he's excelling that role because we thought he would be a guard, but
Right.
then for him to play tackle, and that's what surprised us even more was not only he was starring as a freshman, but that he was starring at a position we didn't think that's where he would be at right tackle. So it just shows you how much the job that Brad Davis has really done with this group, and how really his name should be up there with some of the best offensive line coaches in the country if his name hasn't been thrown so already.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the counterpart to the offensive line, the D line, my specialty, baby.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
know, and let's talk about you know you're losing Ali Gay, losing BJ Ojulari, who is like a jack, but
Hmm.
kind of he's been like 45% of his snaps with his hand down the ground too.
Hmm.
Mason Smith coming off of a freak injury, celebrating, and
Yeah.
now you can still you see them early on in the spring, still kind of get used to it, but like towards the end of spring, it's like okay, he Mason is back. Makai Wingo, who didn't get a lot of I guess airtime, so to speak,
Hmm.
because he was at Missouri, and but people forget that like he was like a freshman All American in the SEC, even though he was undersized coming in.
Right.
And then I was happy for Guillory, Ja'Cory Guillory.
Hmm.
He's that part of that 2020 recruiting class coming out of Alexandria. He was supposed to be like
Yeah. Highly recruited.
the
Really.
next one, and like it took him a while to find his niche. Um, he went through three D line, well four if you count the interim D line coach that just left. And now it's like he finally starting to find his niche. But replacing some of those guys, what we got coming back, um, and what the two deep looking like?
Yeah, so I guess we start. I guess easiest with the inside, like you already mentioned. So Mason Smith, and everybody's wondering. So how is his knee been, and how has he been really practicing? And I have to say, I mean, if he told me that he tore his ACL last year at the beginning of the year, I probably would have told you like that was the case. I mean, he was looked really good in practice, and he's been dominant a lot of times. And when they go 2-on-1 in practice, and he's actually been dominating those reps. So as long as he stays healthy, and as long as he feels like the knee is feeling good, and actually asked Brian Kelly this question the other day, and he said, "Well, the knee's been looking good for Mason Smith." So if the knee, as long as the knee is really good, I mean, he's in for a monster season. I think everybody's expecting it, and I feel like as long as he stays healthy, it's going to happen. And we'll see how strong that knee is against Florida State, like the same game last year when he got hurt in for this upcoming year. But you mentioned Makai Wingo. I mean, Makai Wingo, what he did last year, I think that has to be. And LSU had like the number one transfer portal class last year, but I
Yeah,
feel like the most underrated signee from that group had to been Makai Wingo, what he was able to do. It's not easy because really, when Mason, not only Mason Smith went down, but you really didn't, besides Jacoby and Guillory and Jaquan Roy,
yeah,
you really didn't have a lot of depth behind him. And then really, Makai Wingo not only had to step up, but he had to play pretty much every snap. And he was an All American last year. And I was on the sideline in the SEC championship game. Makai is not, he's not one of those guys like Mason Smith. Like when you see Mason Smith, I'm like,
Steve Mason.
you see Mason Smith.
Yeah,
Makai Wingo, he doesn't look like the All American defensive lineman, but he's just so strong and just so quick. And really, his name is really, it's crazy how his name has flown under the radar when he was an All American last year at LSU. But it just shows you the depth at defensive line. When you put Mason Smith and Makai Wingo next to each other this year, you have the best duo and starting duo in the country on the inside. But on the a lot of the questions were the depth, and I feel like the depth is as good as it's ever been on the inside because Jacoby and Guillory, a veteran, right, like you said, been so good there. And then you look besides him, you have really guys coming in that have been pretty impressive as well. A lot of these guys are guys that LSU actually recruited, like Jalen Lee. Who
yeah,
actually
from
came from
Florida.
Live Oak. Yeah, he
Yeah,
went to Florida and has come back. He's looked pretty good. Now, there's actually a guy named Jordan Jefferson. Now, it's not the quarterback, Jordan Jefferson, but he's looked pretty good as well. It's been a lot of rotation role, and Paris Shan's a transfer from Arizona. So
what
they
about
got
Taji Hill?
Taji Hill. He's been getting some looks as well. So, yeah. So the inside is has been pretty good. So we look at the outside. It's kind of really the main question, right?
Mhm.
Going into the season because you lose guys like Ali Gay, you lose guys like BJ Ojolari, but really, I feel like that's in a solid place right now. On the outside, you get Savion Jones, who's really a veteran. He's kind of like a guy that everybody's expecting to make the next step and be like an All SEC guy.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's been around the program for a long time. Was another highly recruited guy coming out of high school. And you look on the other side, well, actually behind Savion, you have Quincy
Quincy Wiggins.
Wiggins
Yeah.
from Madison Prep, and you talking about basketball earlier before we was taping guys that are getting adjusted to football. But this is a guy, another raw, freakish athlete that really only had like 1 or 2 years at most at Madison Prep playing football. So Justin really getting him molded up and everything, coached up is really the biggest thing with Quincy Wiggins. So, but freakishly, I mean, he's got all the tools in order to be a great defensive end. You look at the jack roll. I really like the depth at that position, even though they're all new faces. But even though they're new faces, there's some veterans there. Ovia Gufo is
Yeah.
a guy that stood out. I mean, just physically just stood out in practice. I mean, he's swollen up, and I mean, you talk about build your Madden all Madden player. It's
Yeah.
Ovia
He's
Gufo.
he's the prototype.
He's a
Yeah.
prototype for it, and he's looked really good. And I mean, I expect him to have a really big role this year. And he actually is going to end his LSU career with the same coach he started with at Notre Dame as Brian Kelly. So he actually had a long college career, Notre Dame to Texas, and now to LSU. So he gets to reunite with Brian Kelly. Braden Swinson, he actually had a great game against Ohio State when they beat Ohio State at Oregon, and he comes in from Oregon. So you got another guy at that jack role, and there's two freshmen that really stick out to me. One of them is Braden, not Braden Swinson. It's Jackson Howard. He was actually the number one player in the state of Minnesota that came all the way down here, and I mean, physically, he definitely looks the part. And then we add in Deshaun Womack too, who is a 5-star, one of the GMs of this recruiting class for LSU. So I'm not really concerned, even though there's not like an alligator, there's a proven commodity there, or BG Ojolari. The depth is pretty much where it was, or maybe even better than it was last year.
Mhm. Then we're gonna flip over to back to the prima donna side of the ball, the offense. You can talk about the running back position. Noah Kane came in last year after a couple of years at Penn State. Came back home. You had John Emery, who had the academic issues started to come, and the surprise of everybody, Williams, who
Yeah.
who who just like came out of left field, but and just put the SEC on. Probably it reminded me of that running back room last year. Remind me of when the Saints won the Super Bowl in '09. You had your bell cow,
Yep.
you had your elusive guy, and then you just had your tones that setting like I'm not trying to shake nobody. I'm just going to run over people. I love to me that was Jay Williams was he was like the Mike Bell for
Right.
them.
Right.
Just like I'm coming downhill and watch out.
Right. Yeah, it was. And it's very interesting to see this running back room this year because you have a lot of options. And Brian Kelly even told us that this is probably the deepest and most talented running back room he's ever been a part of. You have 8 guys in the running back room right now, and it's just a lot of mouths to feed, but the talent is all there, 1 through 8. I mean, you mentioned Josh Williams and what a story he's been, a former walk on, right, coming to the program, and he actually had shown some glimpses of it in that Ole Miss game when he got the start, and that was the game Keishawn Butte had that single game record against Ole Miss. But Josh Williams being a bell cow, I mean, he's just he reminds me a lot like as far as like getting hard to tackle and get him down on the ground a lot like Clyde a little bit in terms of how hard it is to get him down because he's not like 6'3" or anything. He's
Right.
about maybe 5'9", 200 pounds, but he's got just a strong lower body. And the way that he was just able to carry the offense a lot of times when they were struggling, the game against Arkansas, he had a great game there early on. So, I mean, later on in the season, everyone was talking about Harold Perkins, the game he had there, but offensively, they probably probably couldn't have won the game if it wasn't for Josh Williams. So he comes in as a leading rusher, and just what a story he's been, and a captain on this football team, representing LSU in SEC media days. You have a veteran to rely on right there, but also you have a guy like Armani Goodwin who's shown you some flashes. He pretty much iced the game against Mississippi State last year. He was
Yeah.
dealing with some injuries last year too, but looks like he's back and he's healthy. So you have Noah Kane, who actually led the Tigers, I believe, in touchdowns last year. Was kind of like your goal line guy and your power back, and so he's your guy there. But then John Emery, getting him back on the football field is gonna be pretty big. I know he's got another year. Highly recruited guy, has had some bumps in the road and everything,
Right.
but coming into this year, him being back with the football team. He's shown some flashes of just why he was a 5 star. I mean, the catch he made against Alabama when he
Yeah.
scored, the run he had against Auburn on the road was an incredible run. So he might not be 1,000 yard rusher, maybe not like the season what Nick Brissett had in his last year, but he could be a guy that is going to be a big part in the rotation and was going to catch the ball out of the backfield and do multiple things for you and have some of those splash plays that we see. And then LSU gets Logan Diggs in the room too. He's from actually from New Orleans, right
Hmm.
from Rummel, and played at Notre Dame and had a really good season last year at Notre Dame. Had a touchdown catch and against South Carolina in the bowl game, and had over close to 1,000 yards last year. So get him in there. I think he's your all-purpose back, a guy that's can do it all. He can run between the tackles, run outside. He's got good speed. Can catch out of the backfield. Can pass protect too. Blitz pick up. So he's probably your more complete back. And then probably the two most talented running backs that we haven't talked about that are probably on the roster are freshmen,
Yeah.
and Trey
Jay
Holly
Holly.
and Caleb Jackson. So they might not make a big impact this year because there's just so many names, and you also got Trey Bradford coming back in one last chance at LSU after going back and forth LSU to Oklahoma and back to LSU, and so he's getting another chance at LSU. But physically, that's why he's getting chances because he's such a good football player and he's able to capitalize on that chance. But going back to Caleb Jackson and Trey Holly, they might not make a big role this year. They might redshirt just because there's so many backs,
Right.
so many mouths to feed. But watch out for them in the future. They're going to definitely make a big role in this offense. But this is a loaded backfield. You're not going to probably have your bona fide number 1 star. You're not going to have a Leonard Fournette getting 30 carries, but you're going to have plenty of mouths to feed. It kind of reminds me back in like the 2010, 2011 LSU football teams when they had just so many options at running back. I think you're getting back to that style of football with the backs that you got this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the counterpart to the running backs, the linebackers. You know, you it was a up and down year for that position last year. Mike Jones kind of hit and miss, and
Mhm.
because I would say if you could describe the linebacker room last year, I would say it would be inconsistent.
Yeah.
Inconsistency start to finish. But some new faces now, some new faces, and let's talk about that position.
Yeah, even like we talked, I think that was a great word to describe the linebacker room last year because the star, right, Harold Perkins, even that was inconsistent.
Right.
It took a while for him to get a lot of reps in, and even when everybody thought that he was the best defensive player on the field, he wasn't getting starting reps, even against like Tennessee and games like that. So he came on the second half of the year. That's when everybody said Harold Perkins was this great player, and he really is. So he was dominant last year in the Arkansas game when he put up like 5 sacks, pretty much carried that team
Yeah,
on his back in that
he
game.
iced the game too.
Yeah, he did. He did. He pretty much started it and ended on that note. He was just so dominant in that football game. I can't remember a defensive guy single handedly winning a football game in recent years, but that's definitely one that sticks out. But I think he's going to be even better this year than was last year, just because he gets another year to learn under Matt House and learn really the nuances of being a linebacker instead of just, hey, go out there and just be an athlete. That's pretty much what happened last year. Just show your athleticism. So he's going to have a big role. And the good thing about this and the reason why he's going to have a great year, even if it moves inside, is because LSU. We talked about Makai Wingo, right, being that guy in the transfer portal. That was a big standout last year. That version this year is probably Omar Speights, the
Yeah.
guy they got from Oregon State. He's just been very impressive in practice. No question what he can do inside. He had like a gazillion tackles at Oregon State, but what impressed me, and I saw in the spring game, is how he's able to run sideline to sideline and tracing down like guys like Marnie Goodwin and Josh Williams, guys like that, side by side. So having him, the counterpart with Harold Perkins, with already the defensive line he got in front of him, the two
Yeah.
starting guys of Wingo and Smith, that four right there in the middle, that's where you want to build your defense around. So there's no question that that linebacker duo of Perkins and Space is going to be good. The question is, what's the depth going to be like behind them? And you have a third guy that's got a lot of playing time last year and actually got a lot of starting playing time, Greg Penn.
Yeah.
He's back, and he's really been underrated guy, and he's been just a solid football player, and he's going to be a great depth piece for you. And then at behind them, you have the Weeks brothers. You have Wes Weeks. You have Whit Weeks, and actually you go to their website, GridironFootballUSA.com. I said Whit Weeks might be one of those guys that are freshmen like last year. That makes a big impact this year. He had an interception in the spring game
Yeah.
against Ricky Collins. So he's really a freak athlete too. So Wes is a veteran too. A lot of playing time at Virginia, and it's a lot of playing time on special teams and some rotation plays as well at linebacker at LSU. So really, this is going to be you're playing the 4-2-5, so you're going to see majority Harold Perkins, and you're going to see Omar Speights a whole lot. But Greg Penn, you'll see time and time again, and
The
expect
sub
this week,
packages
brothers.
and stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, right. But I really expect Perkins to really have a big time year and even a better year than he did last year, which is going to be scary.
And let's move to the prima donnas on the field. The prima donnas, but they sell the tickets, baby. Let's
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about. I would say, and this is not even an understatement. You just check the stats. Probably the most consistent room in the building.
Year in, year out.
You know, no matter who's the captain of the ship, the wide receiver room. I think the only other school, like, Bama had a nice run. Ohio State and Clemson, but like the longevity of having multiple guys, not just one guy, got to go to LSU. That room came like with a surprise for people who's like around the LSU area. Or not, I wouldn't even say the LSU area that's been like hard nosed into high school football and watch these kids go to LSU is no surprise. But when you have Keyshawn Butte, who was like the darling of the room last year and didn't have the year at all. But then no sweat. Here comes Malik Neighbors. Here comes Brian Thomas. Here comes Jari Jenkins.
Hmm.
You know, then behind that, Kyron Lacey. Then you add into the fold Aaron Anderson
Hmm.
and I can't remember the speedster.
You got Chris Hilton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris. Coming into the fold now. Then you add what LSU's been missing. Since Kevin Rohr. I
Yeah.
go way I go way back to Kevin Rohr, like a consistent threat in the pass game. Like even the year that he won in the championship, Dad Moss was like
Hmm.
he was option 6 or 7.
Right. Right.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Terrence Marshall, both running backs out the backfield. Then Dad Moss.
Hmm.
So but like you gotta go back to like I said, Kevin Royal, like what the tight end was like real deal. Yeah, you could say part of like Foster Moreau.
Yeah.
Might not have to go back, but was consistently part of the passing game.
Yeah. David before maybe going
Yeah.
back earlier than that.
So and you added your Mason, your Coles, and Now it's just like, man, buyers beware, man. Look out.
Oh yeah, this tight end, which we figured was going to be a strength because look at some of the strongest position groups on this team. We knew coming in Kelly was going to shore up the offensive line, and he has. And Kelly was going to shore up tight end, and he has. And you just look at the tight end room, Mason Taylor. We knew just watching him practice that he was going to be a big impact. He was going to make an impact last year. Probably not exactly what we thought the impact would be, but just how clutch he was as a freshman because everybody's going to point to the 2 point conversion catch he had against Alabama, the touchdown catch he had in the fourth quarter as well. But he's just been so good, and it's just he's really developed throughout the course of the year. And I think he's ready to take that next step as being like mentioned along the long lines, like Brock Bowers, as far as like one of the top tight ends in the entire country. But behind him is what makes this tight end room really scary. A guy that it is like a guy or two that's really won us over just through we only seen about 4 practices so far, but a guy that's really won us over is Kamarian Pimpton, because he has some of the softest hands as you'll ever see. He does not drop anything, and he's about 6'6". He's bulked up a little bit. He's about 240, 245 now, and they're going to put him in the slot. He's going to be like your Jimmy Graham. They're going to put him in the slot. They're going to put him on the outside. He's going to be a red zone target too because his wingspan, his catch radius. He's going to have a role in this offense. Add in Mason Taylor, who's does a little bit of everything. He's a great route runner too at the tight end position. And then the other freshman tight ends, Mac Markway, who's more of your blocker, but he can run routes if you need him to. And then Jackson McGowan's kind of a mix of both. So the tight end room is really good. And Dan Brock wants to go 2 tight ends. Kelly wants to use 2 tight ends, and you're going to see 2 tight ends at one time on the field this year.
It did also talk about that wide receiver.
Yeah, the wide receiver room, like you said,
Yeah.
like every year we can just take for granted LSU's going to have a really good wide receiver room, and they have this year. And really, I think last year there was a lot of pressure for LSU to try to get the ball in the hands of Kayshon Boutte. And I think they were really trying to force that last year. Kayshon's obviously a great player, but I feel like this year, really, there's not that. I mean, Malik Neighbors is a number one coming in, but I feel like that everybody knows their role and that Jaden or Garrett Nussmeier, whoever's going to play quarterback. Obviously, Jaden's going to be the guy going into the year, but whoever's throwing passes is going to be. They're not pressured to try to force the ball to Kayshon Boutte. They can throw it to Malik. They can throw it to Kyron Lacey, Brian Thomas, Aaron Anderson. He is scary. I mean, he reminds me so much of like Tyreek Hill, like with the Chiefs. I mean, just so explosive. That first step he has is insane when he's going up against defensive backs. Having him in the slot, Chris Hilton is actually. I mean, he's hungry. I mean, just seeing him in practice, he's had the most impressive catch we've seen him in practice so far. Uh, Down the left sidelines, he caught one, turning, twisting, and was able to reel in for a big play. He's your big play receiver. So really, the depth there is pretty crazy. Brian Thomas expect to make another leap into another year. Kyron Lacey's been really a dog, really this whole off season. Him and Chris Hilton. They're just motivated to have a big year this year. You can just tell on the field. And then you already have Malik Neighbors. He's already shown what he can do, and maybe he can throw a couple passes like he did in the bowl game too.
Yeah.
That's that versatility. But that receiver room, I mean, it's crazy. You have so many options there to throw to, and that's what makes this offense really scary heading to this year because I don't feel like LSU is not going to be pressured to throw it to one other guy because there's so many guys that can beat you in so many ways.
Reminiscences of the 19 year where
Hmm.
you didn't have to force feed Jamar. You didn't have to force feed Justin. You didn't have to force feed Terrence.
Hmm.
It's the defense job. You can't cover them all.
Right.
Can't cover them all. Um, and the prima donnas on the defensive side, the DBs.
Yeah.
Cornerbacks and safeties. Just took a big blow a couple of days ago. The kid from Ohio State.
Yeah. J.K. Johnson.
It fractured his foot.
Hmm.
Um, but going into like coming in last year, it was we got to revamp this and we got to revamp it fast. Enter Joe Fuchsia, into Greg Brooks, into who was on the show with
Right.
us, into Brian Converse, and then my favorite, and I'm still shocked he didn't get drafted. Makai Gardner.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was
Of
too.
last year. Then now they had to hit the transfer portal again. A kid that I coached against in high school is Zaire. Um, when he was a quarterback
He was Louisville.
at Lorville, and then we knew like on that Amy staff, we knew like the kid was special. Not, and there's no disrespect to Coach Selfo in the program at Southeastern, but we knew that all he needed was a chance, and he wasn't going to stay long because he was that good of a player. And now is what DB number one.
Yeah, and it's crazy to say about that because I've actually called a lot of Southeastern games for ESPN three, ESPN Plus, and when I was at Southeastern as a student, and we actually call a lot. It was a Cole Kelly teams when they were really good, and they won the Southland Conference. And Zai was a big part of that team. I actually called one play in which he had a one-handed pick in a football game. It was like his ball skills are just amazing, and really physically, he has all the skills and all the measurables that you want in the DB. And Zai has actually gotten first team reps already at cornerback. So I mean, he was a guy I've already written about as a guy that's going to break out. That's a transfer coming in, and it's like last year, right? You have a lot of new names. The talent's there, but what guys are going to be stepping up at those roles? Out of all the position groups, this is definitely the biggest question marks heading into it. But we've seen really a couple, three or four guys really get those first team looks, and Zai's one of them. And you mentioned the injury with J.K. Johnson. He's been hovering around the scooter pretty much the whole time we're at practice. But Deuce Chestnut, he's not exactly like
The kid from
Zai, the
Syracuse.
kid from Syracuse. He's not tall, rangy like Zai is. He's a little bit undersized, but he's a great tackler. He's a savvy veteran type of guy that you need, a calming presence that you need. So he's been getting first team reps. With Terrence Welsh is another name to watch out for because he had himself a great spring.
LCA.
Yep, yep. And yep, Acadiana. Yep. And you have Sage Ryan, who's at LCA.
Yeah,
Yep,
the
yep,
land
yep.
stuff.
Yeah, but Sage is getting some reps at nickel as well. Some starting looks there. So at cornerback, you have like with Terrence Wells, Zy Alexander, Deuce Chestnut. Everybody's wondering about Denver Harris, who was the five-star transfer from Texas A&M. And I feel like that the coaches, you're giving them a hard lesson. Like you're gonna have to earn your way, and they're not gonna give it to you. You're gonna have to work for that spot. So we haven't really seen as much reps with Denver Harris, but the talent is there, and he puts it all together. And there's still a couple more weeks left to fall practice too. So if he puts that together, then he can be a big part of this defense, the way we expected. Really, the nickel position is going to be interesting because Greg Brooks could play nickel too, and he's a guy that can excel in that type of role. And you've seen the ball hawk type, Tyron Matthew type player that Greg Brooks is. The question is, you put Greg at nickel, or do you put because Major Burns is obviously going to be one of the safeties.
Right.
The other safety that's been playing really well is actually Andre Sam, and that's another guy that I've called a lot of games for because Southeastern would play McNeese, and Andre Sam actually picked off Garrett Nussmeyer in practice the other day. So he's actually been a guy. His name has been trending up, and he's been playing really well. And that's a reason why they got a guy like Andre Sam who's had a lot of experience at safety. So there's a lot of questions with that room. The talent's there. I'm not too worried about it just yet. But really there's a lot of mysteries going around the cornerback and safety room, which is not really used to really saying a lot because that's been a great position group in years past.
And we don't have to even spend time on the captain of the ship, was his quarterback. But the thing that just was just so surprising to me, and me and Coach Denbrock have a good relationship. To I asked him at the clinic. I said, "Man, you are the first coach that I've seen to lose a 5-star quarterback and not show like
Not show
man,
it. Right.
man, you know what I'm saying? Didn't lose him to a rival, a conference rival. It was like, and then he was like, "Did you see Gus practice yet this spring?" I said, "No, sir, I have not." He said, "Watch Gus."
Oh yeah.
He said it's Jaden's show.
Hmm.
He said just watch Gus, and then it was like the first play, and it was crazy because like Cortez had just showed like everybody like this is how I teach my guys to get to the outside, boom 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 boom, and it's a field game. It just having a quarterback put the ball in the opportunity for us to make a play, and Jaden goes throws the ball to Malik. Malik wins that rep, but then Brian goes and it's Gus throwing the ball, and you could tell it's supposed to be a 7-step drop. And he cuts it off at 5 and just lets the ball go. And Brian is still getting off of the boom, boom, boom. And by the time he gets his hand around somebody,
Hmm.
it's like goodness,
Yeah.
goodness. And then to have to be, I think the person that's going to be the most successful in that room is a person like Ricky coming in as a freshman. There's no pressure on him. He gets to sit and he's the best of both worlds. He can scramble like Jaden. He's not as fast as Jaden.
Hmm.
He can throw the ball accurately, but he doesn't have the arm power as Gus. But the thing about it is, he's a freshman. He gets to sit back,
Yeah.
get to watch, get to learn, boom, boom, boom. And when it's my time, look out.
Yeah, he's a mix of both.
Mm.
And you look at it, I mean, it's Jaden's show. I mean, what he was able to do last year, you can say he's the best running quarterback. You can say best running quarterback LSU's ever had. And the stretch he had at the end of last year was pretty amazing as well. So having him for another year, everybody's talking Heisman talk with him, and a lot of preseason hype. Everybody's saying he's the top quarterback in the SEC coming up of this year. So he came here to LSU because he had some great moments at Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
He actually beat Justin Herbert, outplayed Justin Herbert when they played against Oregon, and beat them. And Jane Daniels wants to come here. He wants to win the national championship. He wants to do what another transfer quarterback did a couple of years ago, and Joe Burrow did from Ohio State. So him coming in here, proving his worth, I felt like he did a great job of just with all the outside noise, especially early in the year too, about a lot of talk of putting Garrett Nussmeier in. I thought he's just been cool, calm, and collected, and he hasn't let that get into him. And I really credit for the job he did last year and really embracing that. And you saw what he can do when he takes over games. He took over against Alabama,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, not. I mean, that's pretty rare when you do that against Alabama. The game he had against Ole Miss, so that 3 game stretch he had Florida, Ole Miss, and Alabama was as any 3 game stretch I've ever seen a quarterback really play. Have him back next year. It is his show. Everybody knows that. But Garrett Nussmeier, man, he has been. I mean, it's been a thing of beauty watching him play quarterback and like really the off season. I mean, just pushing the ball downfield, being aggressive, but being accurate too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also not as trigger happy, so he's actually going through his progressions. He takes down the underneath throws if he has to. So, and that's the thing they've been really kind of harnessing that gunslinger mode that Garrett Nussmeier is. But I feel like he's taken some big steps. It's that old saying goes like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you got none. Well, LSU they got 2 quarterbacks that
Yeah.
can definitely play. They got 2 QB1s. Everybody knows, and they're in a great position right now because Jaden Daniels is a guy this year. If he happens to get hurt, you can rely on Garrett Nussmeier to go in there and get the job done for you. We know Garrett Nussmeier's got at most 2 years left after this year.
Right.
And then you set it up for Ricky Collins. You got a guy coming in like Colin Hurley behind him. So the quarterback position is just great and great seeing. It's just as great as you really want it to be. Really, and we've seen some tough years at that position.
Yeah.
But really the sky's the limit what this position group can be, especially what Jane can do this year. And I feel like he's going to have a great season this year. I don't think he's going to run as much as he did last year, but he's still going to be very effective in the run game. And adding with all the weapons they have, this offense is going to be humming really early in the year, which is going to really make a difference because I think the offense will find its identity and its rhythm later in the season. Well, they pretty much know already, and you can tell in practice that this is what they're going to be this year.
Big question. Big question.
Yep.
LSU can win a national championship this year if
LSU can win a national championship this year and it could happen. Now, a lot of things have to go their way. Like, for example, always the case with football in general.
Injuries.
Injuries. Make sure you stay healthy. There's going to be a game. It happened in 19. There's going to be an off game, and that was that Auburn game in 19. You gotta win some of those games. You're not at your best, and especially if it's on the road, it's going to be really tough. But really, LSU has the talent. The question is, do they have like I thought they had the talent last year to win 8, 9 games. I didn't expect them to win the West, but I thought that they had the talent to win 8, 9 games, and they did. This year, I think they've developed more depth, and that was a situation Brian Kelly came when they only had about 40 scholarship players really coming in. So going into another year, you get more depth. The question is that depth championship level depth just overall? But the starters are there. I feel like the 22 out there can win you a national championship. Question is, can the depth, the guys, the key piece behind them, can they win you a national championship? And some of the question marks, like we talk about the secondary, and we talk about really the depth at some other positions too. If they can have great years, and the court like Jane Daniels takes the next step, the receivers have a great year, offensive line don't have many injuries at that position. Mason Smith is healthy and has the type of season we expect him to have. Peril Perkins has the season you expect him to have. This team can easily be like a 11-1 football team, going in and having a chance for another SEC championship. And obviously, if you go to the SEC championship and you win that, I mean, you punch yourself a ticket for the playoffs. So can this team be a playoff team? I really think this team can be a playoff team, and we'll see. Like Brian Kelly said, maybe year three. I think he said year three could be the year that we're confident we won the national championship. But he surprised us last year, and then I wouldn't be surprised if LSU can win the national championship in year number two, just like some of these other coaches have been winning year number two, like Jay Johnson and Kim Mulkey have been doing with their program.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. And I know you're the football beat writer for now, but what a time to be at LSU right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's been crazy with baseball and the season they had this past year with all the pieces they put together with Jay Johnson, Kim Mulkey, the season they had women's basketball winning national championship, and you have guys like Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens representing the baseball team. You got Angel Reese, women's basketball team for Jay Johnson, right? And then football team, you can probably look to Jaden Daniels, Mason Smith, and Harold Perkins. Maybe they be the faces of this year's team coming up.
Yeah, man, it was crazy because we had Chris Goff, director of LGR, on a couple of weeks ago, and he was like adamant that that LSU team was probably like the worst team to win the national championship, talent wise,
Hmm.
and to have most of that come back on top of what you had come in, plus the transfer portal
It's a game changer. The
yeah,
transfer portal is definitely a game changer for
you know,
sure.
is so you know before we in this, for those kids out there who interested in going into the media aspect of sports, what's some advices that you can give them to, like, hey, it might not have worked for you on the court or on the field or whatever. It doesn't matter where you're from. These are some of the things that can help you get a leg up and be successful in this business as you have.
Just get involved. Get involved early. For me, just as an example, I played at Catholic High, but no one at a 5A school, and that was kind of the teams with Darius Geis and those teams are like, yeah, I probably won't play until probably my senior year. So I realized that early. But if you want to get involved with sports media is something that you want to do, be involved. Like be involved with your school newspaper, be involved with your broadcasting team at the school. Now, not a lot of schools have that, so go to your local news station or newspaper as well to see if they need any help, and just work your way up. I mean, it could be a guy that can string along, right? Just get some experience that way. So always be involved, always ask questions, and always be around people that can help you get that next step up. So I was fortunate to be in a really good position. Getting the opportunity with Lee Burkeen at first, and then now just growing even more with Andy Bryson, getting those opportunities. So always just be involved, no matter what the task is. I started off really just with Lee Burkeen's TV show. Just my job was to watch the food. Right for the guests, like just watch the food. So don't question whatever job you start off with, but just make sure that you want to be involved, whatever way possible, and just work your way up from there. So always be working hard, always put your nose down, and then if you want to be in sports, that's the way that it's going to be.
What's coming up next for Gridiron football, man?
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on in Gridiron Football. We've been pretty busy on our website. You can check us out, gridironfootballusa.com. We've had a lot of features. We've been doing a lot of high school spotlights as well. We had a big media day the other week. We had about over close to 40 teams show up to the media day. So I've been writing about some team previews on our website. I've been going out there at LSU practice every single day, giving practice reports every single day. So you won't keep up with LSU. You're an LSU football fan. You won't get the inside scoop. We got practice highlights. We got really insight on what's going on every day in practice. So make sure to go gridironfootballusa.com for all your LSU scoop. We'll get some LSU position previews like we've been talking about today through the next couple of weeks. So a lot of LSU coverage. We'll have when the season starts, we'll have a couple of video like shows that we stream on YouTube. We'll have a Player of the Week show in high school for Louisiana high school football. Get like the Player of the Week each and every week. We'll have a LSU show that I host a lot of times with Marcus Randall. So speaking of your buddy Marcus Randall, we'll get to host a show as well called the Chase with Jace. Get a weekly show updating you about what's going on with the Tigers, and we'll have really got some interns working for us as well this fall, so we'll have a lot of content from all over. We're not Football USA, so we're trying to branch out across the country. So we're going to have a lot of high school content, not only in Louisiana, but a lot around the country as well. And then at the end of the year, we'll have our Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game another time this year again, and we're excited to have it. We're going to bring it back after having it in Orange Beach last year, which was a great success. We're going to have it back in the boot. We're going to have it back in Memorial Stadium in Red Stick City of Baton Rouge. So we're excited about that. So we got a lot of things going on at Gridiron Football. So make sure to go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And before we go, we got to do it. One of the staples of our podcast. We got to ask Jace favorites.
Okay.
Ready? Here we go.
Okay. I like this. I'm not really used to answering the questions. I'm usually on the other end of the spectrum asking the questions. So this is pretty new to me.
Jace's favorite sports moment.
Jay's favorite sports moment. Well, I have to say LSU being Alabama in 2019. That has to be my favorite.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Jace's favorite food to eat out on the road.
Oh, out on the road, I'm gonna have to say, well, my favorite food in general is pizza. I mean, I can't turn down pizza, but it's hard to eat that on the road, right? So I would say good burger. It could be a burger from like Sonic, good Sonic burger on the road. Is pretty good. So yeah, some can't go wrong with Canes, right? So I mean, can't pass down Canes. I'm raising Canes. I've been Louisiana guy, so being around that a long time.
Jace's favorite venue other than Tiger Stadium to report it.
The Superdome. It's just I just love reporting the Superdome. I was there for the first game. My first game I ever covered as an LSUB writer for Gridiron Football was in the Superdome. Covered a lot of state championships in that facility as well. And it's just the Super Bowls that have been played there. Really the history, the tradition behind it. It's been great. So I love covering. My favorite part about it, besides covering LSU football, is covering the state championship games and how pure those are. So I gotta go with the Superdome.
Jace's favorite football player of all time.
Jay's favorite football player all time is pretty recent, but I mean I have to say Joe Burrow. I mean just what he was able to do at LSU, and especially at that position, at that quarterback position, which has been hard to come by, and to have that type of year, can't argue against that. So I gotta go with Joey B.
And if Jace wasn't a beat writer or doing any type of sports reporting, what would Jace be doing?
Now that's a tough question. That's a tough one. I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for sports. Um, I would probably say I would be a teacher. I mean, my dad, my mom, my grandparents, they involved in teaching kids. So I feel like teaching would be something that giving back to kids in any way I can. I would say being a teacher would be the main profession if I wasn't a sports writer.
Now, man, there it is, baby. We gotta get you out there at St. Lena, man.
Oh yeah, we gotta see what the Hawks are up to this year. Looking forward to it. What y'all think about this year's group?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, coming in from A meet, where a program was already established, winning two state championship, and then leaving leaving after the second state championship. This is my second go round at St. Helena. Just to rebuild it back again. Had one of my former players get drafted by the Bills, Cyrus Torrance.
Oh
So
yeah.
to see the kids do that, had Devontae Smith, who Coach Gordon was his position coach, come in year one, like and work out with the kids and stuff. So it's good to go through the learning phase, pains of it again. Um, Especially like last year, we came into a situation where only one kid had scored a touchdown. Only four people had played varsity snaps, and to come tied for the district championship in year one, go and ended in the second round, to bring that whole offensive line back, to bring the whole defensive line back. The quarterback was a freshman last year. Sky's the limit for us right out there in Greensboro, man.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll definitely be covering the Hawks a lot of times. Hopefully, we cover y'all in the Superdome too. Is what we're hoping.
Hey, we'll find out together. That's how I'm saying. We're gonna find out together, man. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Been a great show. Remember to like, comment, subscribe on New Orleans Talk Network. Follow us at the FanView podcast, and make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe on everything that the Gridiron Football is producing, man. This is Coach Hurricane here on another episode. Signing out, baby.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanView podcast. Tune into the NOTN app, weekdays, 3:30 for the FanView podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanView podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.